Okay, so welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Rebecca Pitt. Now, Rebecca and I met through Instagram back in 2020, so it's coming up on 3 years. And Rebecca has also shared a photograph when I was doing the Creative Photography Academy and the Inspiration magazine, and I've enjoyed seeing what I have seen of Rebecca's journey. So I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm going to let Rebecca talk about her journey. So, hello, Rebecca.
Hi. It's funny that you mention that we've met for 3 years because you knew me at the start of my journey because I've only been doing this for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
So I was not very good. I mean, I don't think I was very good back then, but it was a key part of my journey because when I started it was all wildlife photography and animals, and it was what I was passionate about. It's because conservation is very important to me,
yeah,
and
yeah,
sticking with that. I mean, I still do it today, but it's less present in my work because obviously I've went to A levels and uni to do it, and they're very focused on more the commercial side of
right,
photography, which is trying to get it to sell,
yeah, yeah,
which is a weird concept for me because a lot of my work, especially now, is to do around important topics.
yeah.
And I don't see that as sellable material. I see it as something I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they're very good points because I mean, first of all, I think photography is a journey, and we go through photographing different things, and I think what drives that to some extent is what we're passionate about at the time, and as we go forward, those passions change as well because we learn new things, we have different experiences, and also you've mentioned the other aspect of it, which is doing it through structured learning, which will take you into other aspects, some of it being the commercial side, and
Yeah.
how do you sell photography, which perhaps you wouldn't normally have touched on. And maybe
Mhm.
once you come out of that training, there are aspects of that that you won't revisit because they don't resonate with you anymore. But there are
Yeah.
other aspects of it that do, and that will take you in a completely different um, direction.
Yeah, I feel like in a way with I've always wanted to go to uni, always. It's
Yeah,
always been a dream to go to uni because I just wanted to be able to say to my sisters, haha, look, I went to uni.
fair enough.
But I was gonna do business management. I wanted to do something because I never knew what I wanted to do after uni. And I thought business management, safe bet, you can go into anything.
Yeah.
And it legit came to the point where we had to write our personal statement. And the first question they asked us to answer was, why do you want to do this? And I was like, well, I can't just put down, well, it's
Stick
a
it to
suitable option. So I was like, you know what, scrap it. I legit scrapped everything. I was like, right, doing photography. Completely changed in that instant my path. And it was like, you know what? We're just gonna do that, we'll see how it goes. And I picked a course that kind of links to business, so they teach us the business side of photography as well, and
Yeah.
how to get that. um and I go to Leeds Arts Uni,
Okay.
um but they are very pushy towards studio work.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're very much get in the studio, getting
Yeah.
very, that's what they want you to do, really. And I wouldn't say I'm a studio worker.
Yeah. Yeah.
um I mean, I have studio techniques for a lot of my work, like when I used to make the magazines covers
Yeah.
and the movie posters and all that when I was really into that. I have that skill, but I used to do them at home with a makeshift studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a lot different to actual big lights and all this different equipment. And it was
Yeah.
very overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a lot of people getting into photography, especially if they want to go commercial that way, working in studios, it can be a lot all at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I need people to know it's not as scary as they make it seem. Like you see all the big equipment and it's like, oh my God, I'm out of my
Absolutely.
depths. But like as soon as you know the basics, it's really not that scary.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of things when you're confronted with it and it can feel high pressure and maybe there are preconceptions that you have yourself, it can seem an awful lot. But once you begin to break it down to step by step, then it becomes more manageable. And I think as well, it's a really good experience to have because it helps you speak the language. When you're with other photographers, even down the track, I helped a photographer I know in Sydney. We were doing work with a group called Half Cut, who are doing conservation. They're buying up chunks of rainforest in Queensland, so it isn't developed. And we did a studio shoot as part of building up some promotional material.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do studio, but it's good to have that experience sort of in your back
Yeah.
pocket because you never know when it's going to suddenly be quite handy for something you hadn't perhaps thought about.
Mm-hmm. It 100% is like I wouldn't trade that information for anything. Although like wildlife's still like my main passion. It's what I love to do, like be out and with a camera in the dirt and mud and capturing that moment. That's my favorite thing to do. But I wouldn't trade the studio work because I also do love that because it allows me to take the photos of the meaningful things I'm trying to say. Like a lot of my work is around mental health.
Yeah, yeah,
I look at it quite a lot, and that's more of a personal thing because obviously I've struggled with my mental health a lot in the past, and I do feel like photography's been a way for me to express how I felt to other people and hopefully connect with them
yeah,
about that. And it's been a way for me to actually feel better
yeah,
a lot of the time.
yeah. How has that manifested? What's been the difference? Is it the act of sharing your photographs? Has that made you feel better just putting it out there, or has it been feedback you've got from sharing? How has that being involved in photography helped you with your mental health?
I definitely think it's the feedback. So especially when I post an image that I've took, like kind of showing how I feel,
Yeah,
like a photo I've done to represent my mental health. When people come back to me and say that they relate to this
yeah,
and that they understand it and
yeah,
that this has helped them know that there's other people out there that are also like that helps me because it's like well sometimes you do feel alone with your mental health and that kind of just
Mhm.
brings it a bit out like you're not actually as alone as you might think you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with mental health, and particularly with the COVID lockdowns, which 2 years ago now, but I think brought that into sharp focus to use a phrase.
Yeah. Oh,
I think having been able to also do something that you feel passionate about, um, and photography is one of those things that you can do absolutely anywhere. It allows you to spend time doing something that you love that can be self-fulfilling on its own, but also sharing with others and getting great feedback is a great way of connecting with other people, which of course I think is another thing that underlies, let's say, poor mental health. Often it's down to an inability for whatever reason to connect with other people, and there is that feeling of being alone.
yeah.
So I feel it personally, it's a very powerful tool, a very
Yeah.
powerful way of connecting.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially for people that may struggle with communicating to people. So I have social anxiety.
Yeah,
Talking to people is a very scary process, and I'm not gonna lie, COVID and technology has definitely made that harder for me.
right.
So like being able to just message people from my phone, it's took away having to actually speak to people, which makes me very nervous. So
Yeah,
being able to express myself and communicate through my images is a very helpful tool.
yeah. And I want to acknowledge you as well for doing this.
Yeah.
Although, we're kind of having a chat, but also other people are listening to this. And I'm sure many people who are listening have the same anxiety that you have to one degree or another. And
Mm-hmm.
I think says a lot about you personally and your courage to just, sit down and do it. And
Yeah.
and other people, I'm sure, are getting a lot of benefit from just listening and being a part of
Yeah.
this conversation.
Oh, believe me, I'm sat here sweating out of nervousness. You could probably hear me stuttering before and like losing my words, but I'm going for it.
You're going for it, and you're doing great. You're doing great. And you reminded me actually of something else. I think it's a conversation we had when we first connected. And I do want to raise it now because I think it's important. And it is about the feedback, because occasionally there is feedback that isn't positive. And do you have anything to say about how to handle that, or how you handled that?
I'm not gonna lie. In the beginning, it was devastating to me. Like, it was like world crushing when someone would have like a negative feedback against my work. But it's not like constructive criticism. A lot of the time it would just be like, this is terrible, why do you have followers, or something like that on Instagram. And that was world crushing to me because it was something I was passionate about. I was doing the best I could and I thought my images were good. But at the end of the day, it's a random person you've never met and you don't know them, and likely chances why they're commenting something like that is they're likely insecure themselves. But I wouldn't be mean back. I just ignore them. But if it's constructive criticism, do listen, because they're just trying to help you improve. It's not like a negative attack on you, which sometimes it may feel like, because obviously your work is your pride and joy. But it's not an attack, and you just kind of need to roll with the punches.
And it is important because it can be intentionally personal and vulnerable when you do share something, particularly something you're really pleased with. And my own view is that if somebody you don't know makes a comment that is very negative like that, it really says much more about them. But it's all about them. It's talking about them, not about you. And they are struggling and not doing terribly well, perhaps, with their own issues. And I think that's a healthy way of looking at it as well, and just separating. Because the feedback that matters is the feedback that you can take on board. It's come from someone who cares about what you're doing and cares about you, and they're trying to help you and encourage you. Thank you for talking about this, because it's something that affects all of us, I think. Particularly when you first start out, you first start putting photos out there. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, and it can be devastating, as you've said.
It is, especially when I'd say for people starting out young, like I did. I started at 14. Don't worry what people say, because when you start out that young, you will get a lot of comments of praise for your work because you're so young, but you'll also get people saying that your work isn't good. It's your age that people are impressed by. And it can hurt, but at the end of the day, again, it just says more about them, and just keep posting your work, because that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now, where you're at, and perhaps where your photography's at, and where you're going with it right now?
Yeah.
You've spoken about wildlife, but
Well, I have done a bit of wildlife recently. I did the apprenticeship with Canon for their magazine. Which will be coming out soon. So I'm looking forward to sharing those wildlife
I'm
images.
looking forward to them as well.
They're really good. I was so impressed with myself.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, the cameras that I was provided definitely helped, from my little kit to theirs. But that was really fun. But the main thing I'm doing at the moment is obviously my uni work. Which is obviously more studio work. It's more like conceptual pieces, which I do enjoy. I love it. But all my work, again, is around like mental health and that. We're doing a module about bookmaking at the moment. And we have to produce 20 to 40 images, all linked on a theme for a book. And my topic that I picked, again, I've got to make it difficult for myself. I've always got to find the harder way to do things. I decided to go with how technology has connected us more all over the world.
Yeah.
But it's actually stopped people from connecting personally.
Yeah.
In person. So I wanted to look at that and how it impacted people. But I found it's very hard to bring a digital space to a physical space to photograph. So I had to be very creative with my ideas, which, is bizarre saying I struggled with this when I say I'm a photographer. I do a creative subject and I'm like, I'm struggling creatively. But
I've seen some of your photos and they're great because you've been posting on Instagram, and I will put a link to your Instagram page in the comments thing on the podcast.
Yeah, I was very happy sharing those images, but like it was also because I've posted animal photos for so long, it's like I can't actually post them out of fear like it'll disconnect. So I might make a new account to post those possibly.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
But yeah, I came up with a few ideas that I thought would work. Stuff like, using post-it notes to represent notifications and how overwhelming all those post-it notes were. So those were like really conceptual ideas. And I've noticed though, which I don't recommend anyone doing, is I focus so hardly on my conceptual ideas and what different things will mean in my image that I kind of lose sight of the technical side sometimes. Like sometimes I legit just light the space and I'm like, right, it's well lit and there's enough light here for the camera, and I take the image because I've got it down conceptually. Like I legit don't consider like maybe if it comes from the left it'll look better. I just prop it up where I can and I'm like, right.
But that's good because this, by observing that, these are things you can change, and then next shoot you can try different setups and maybe different lighting and different positions or shooting from a different place. So all of those things, and I think they become habits after a while. So we all go through the phase of shooting something that is great, and then later when you can't do anything about it, think, ugh, if I'd have just moved, to the left or whatever. But hopefully we pick up. And when you learn through failure, that's the biggest learning, or failure as in not having quite the outcome that you hoped for.
Yeah, I do think failure is like, it's a very important thing. It's going to happen with photography. And if something doesn't work, you shouldn't feel like bad about, well, obviously that doesn't thingy to me because I'm perfect. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But no, failure is going to happen. We can't all get everything right. And I've had a lot of issues with my photography, as you've likely seen on some of my posts, like the over editing some images. I look back at some of them and I see like these pink, orange images and I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you edit it like that? Or like motion that you can see, like with there's a leopard, no, it's a snow leopard that's yawning. And if you really look at it, it's fuzzy and it really irritates me now. But at that time I was like, this is the best photo I've took. I love it. But
this is just life. This is learning. And I think the thing about, I'm reading a business book at the moment, and it's a business strategy book. And one of the points it makes is that the way businesses succeed now is just failing faster and faster. That's the secret to success. You just fail faster than everybody else does, because through that failure, you learn. You learn what doesn't work. And it's like a child learning to walk. Everything we do naturally is failure, and we don't embrace failure as a culture.
God, no.
We do anything we can to avoid it, but it's absolutely essential. And I think in a creative environment like photography, it's so important that we constantly fail, because it helps us to create more. We see what's wrong with that, and then we don't do really bright editing or whatever it is that's wrong for the moment. But then down the track, we might think, actually, that was pretty cool, because we're coming from a different perspective. So it's just constant evolution. I think if people embrace failure,
Yeah.
as an absolutely fundamental and vital part of growing, then I think people would be a lot happier for one thing.
Yeah, embracing failure is really hard because obviously you don't want to look at your images and be like, that shouldn't have, that's not good. But I think one of the most important things for my development of photography was actually looking at my images and critically assessing them. Not just like, I like this image, I love it, so I'm going to share it. Like, actually looking at it and going, well, what were the issues? What could I fix? What have I done wrong? But what also, don't just look at the negative, see what you've done well with an image.
Absolutely.
It's very important, and I learned this in A levels and uni, because when we put a photo up, we have to write about it and explain what we did, what went wrong, and all this. And it's really helped me to locate the things that I'm doing bad in my photography. But there again, everyone needs to know that there's technically no right and wrong with photography, because you may make a really grainy image, but if the intent was the image to be grainy for a specific reason, then there's nothing wrong with it. And
Absolutely.
people will tell you there is.
Absolutely. And another powerful thing is to look at photographs again later. I know some photographers don't even look at their photographs when they've taken them. They'll leave it at least 3 months. And the reason is that they're no longer looking at that photograph through the eyes of what they're hoping to shoot. They're just looking at it in its own right, as it is an image. And that also can be, if you're able to do that, I appreciate if you're in uni, that the lecturers aren't, or whoever's teaching you isn't probably that impressed when you say, well, I've taken my photographs, but I'm not looking at them for 6 months. So, everything's got to wait. But it is a way of looking at things objectively. And that's perhaps a big tip for people who aren't under a kind of time pressure to produce something.
Yeah, that would be a great thing. Like, I've noticed when I look back on my Instagram posts now, like back from when I started, I'll look at them and I'll be like, what were you thinking? And like now when I edit the images, I take the same images that I had and I edit them now, and I'm like, I would have been so much happier with sharing this image than that one back then. But also that comes to editing. A lot of people don't like post-processing, especially on wildlife photos, because like their argument is they like it to be natural, which I agree with. Natural images do look great. But if you like to edit your images and you want them to look a specific way, then go for it. Because I've had a lot of people tell me my photos are way over processed, which in some cases I agree, but in other cases I like the way they look.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is.
Absolutely. And to me, post-processing digital is just part of it. Any image you look at now has been post-processed.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to two things. There's the ethical side of it. First of all, are you trying to misrepresent the animal? And one of the things I was reading about last week was how people stage some of these shots with like, say, a tortoise with a frog on the top, or all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
They freeze, there's some nasty stuff goes on. So they kind of set the shot up in the first place wrong, and then do post-processing to make it look like it's somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So that I absolutely disagree with. But secondly, you've got to remember as well that the system you're using to record the image is in some ways quite limited, because we look at things and our eyes and our brain are a very effective visual system that compensates for lighting and all sorts of other things. Camera doesn't do that. The camera will go for a certain amount of light coming in, and it will guess that's exposures, right, depending on how you use your camera. But in most cases, something's off. And I think the final thing is you need to be producing images that you like, because it keeps you producing more.
Yeah.
And your tribe, as it were, the people who like your work will like that image. So, and as you say, it's personal. Ultimately, there are no wrongs and rights.
Yeah.
You can have a technically correct picture that's dead, And you can have one that's absolutely horrible technically, but it's got a connection. Mate, I was thinking of somebody, we were on a photo walk in Sydney. Somebody took a photograph of some runners going by, and it's getting slightly dark, lighting's off. It was horrible. It was blurry, lighting was bad, but one of the runners had turned around and you had the eye contact with them, even though it was slightly fuzzy. And I thought it was just the best photograph of that evening because there was a contact there. And so the technical stuff for me in that situation didn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's really subjective.
Oh, it is. Photography is very subjective, which is why I also take people's opinions with a very small grain of salt, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to think differently.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You just got to do what you like. Obviously, I do not believe you should stage an image to misrepresent anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like when we do shoots, we have to fill out ethic forms. Right. So we have to prove to the uni that it's not ethically wrong.
Great.
Which I have to fill out a lot because I look at mental health a lot. So obviously I have to prove that I'm not going to make them look, I don't know, like crazy or something instead of showing what it actually feels like. Which I understand why I have to do it and I don't mind doing it. But yeah, when it comes to editing, I just I don't know, I like making them darker and moodier, which I've been told off for a few times. They're like, it's too dark. And I'm like, but I like it that dark.
But that's it. And if you think of any photograph that you love, love's an emotion anyway.
Yeah.
But generally you'll love it because there's an emotional connection. There's something about it. And post-processing is a brilliant way of varying the mood of a shot and making it darker or brighter or whatever, but it changes the feel of it. It can make it feel a bit threatening. It can make it feel really happy if you use lots of bright colors. So post-processing is a very, very powerful part of the whole image creation process, if you like.
I feel like even if you do very little, if you keep your images looking quote unquote natural, there's still some post-production going on that you've definitely edited even the tiniest bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can usually tell if an image is kind of raw, like the raw file.
Yeah.
But the issue, if I find, is when obviously your eyes see differently, as you said. So when I take a picture, I'm looking at something and then I look at the picture on the camera and I'm like, what happened? You'll see it most when you photograph a sunset. You'll see it most. You're like, oh, these vibrant colors, it's so nice. And you take a picture and you look at the image and go, what happened to the colors? Why are they so unsaturated?
Exactly. And that's that system, the way the camera works.
Yeah.
And I look at them now on the camera, and if it's a flat image, that to me is a good captured image because I can do things with that. Because the camera is not going to get what my eyes have just fed to what my eyes and my brain have just created. So, I mean, I all of my images are post-processed, but normally I don't spend more than 2 minutes on an image.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, people won't like this. So, people that post-process, how they get it on their laptop and they'll go through and they'll do their little edits. I send the photos to my phone and I do it on the little slidey Photoshop editing.
But that's great. It's about what tool works for you. And if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. So again, no wrongs and rights. It's about what works for you. That's great.
I mean, it definitely shows that you don't need to spend money to do stuff that you like because that is free. To use on your phone, as long as it's not raw. Well, you have to pay if it's raw files, obviously. So I used to have to use JPEGs and edit those, which you can probably see in my earlier images, the quality, which really upsets me now. But it was a free tool. It was, I can't afford these fancy equipment. I started off on a second-hand Canon 1100D, which I still have today. That camera and all the equipment that came with it, which is 3 lenses, which I still use today.
Yeah, good.
Free filters and a camera bag was like £200.
Yeah, yeah,
It was really cheap.
that's really good.
Which is what I could afford. It was like I begged and pleaded for this camera, because I just wanted to do photography. Which the reason they probably also got me a cheap one is because I was very good at wanting to do a hobby and then realizing I didn't actually like it.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Yeah,
I think as well, though, it's good to start out with something cheap because what also happens is you begin to develop, if you do stay with it, you'll begin to find limitations in the equipment you have, but that tells you what you need next. And
yeah,
so you haven't invested thousands, into some massive kit, and then you realize it's all wrong.
mm-hmm.
And mine lenses, I actually had a horrible thought while you were speaking. I think some of the lenses I use now, I bought them before you were born. So
God.
but this is why it's so important. Once you kind of know where you want to go, you buy a
Yeah.
good quality kit, then you keep it because it'll last you decades. Bodies these days change, but lenses, yeah, I've got some pretty old ones.
God. I'm a strong believer though that you don't need expensive equipment to take good photos. Yes, like I've noticed like with the um full sensors on the
Yeah,
cameras and like the newer lenses, the image, yes, is crisper,
yeah,
but I still use my dinky little secondhand camera and 300 Sigma lens
yeah,
for my wildlife and animal photography. And I just feel like with photography and like lenses and cameras, yes, you can increase the quality with a newer equipment, but
yeah.
I feel like you can still get really good images with cheap equipment if you know its limitations and what it's good at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's nice to shoot big files, but with the files I use, so not everyone listening can hear, but behind me there's one of my photographs. But before that was printed, I had to run it. I mean, I did my normal post processing and I used Photoshop because I learned enough of Photoshop to get me through.
Yeah.
But I then have to run it through another program from a company called Topaz Labs to get the quality up and get it big enough to be used for the kind of printing I do. So, having a camera that takes massive pictures is great, but
Yeah.
it's not the end of the story. So you can get caught up too much in how much you invest in the camera and the equipment, I think particularly early on.
Yeah.
And having stuff that you like and that does the job for you, great. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be hugely expensive.
The thing is, as well, a lot of people don't notice that you're using a fancy camera if you are. Because I've had so many DMs asking me what equipment I'm using. And I tell
Yeah.
them every time my second-hand camera. And they're like, no way that took that. They're like, no way that camera took that image. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. It did.
Absolutely. And there was an old saying, this is, you can tell from the wording, but the most important part of a camera system is the 12 inches behind the viewfinder. So basically your head, that's the most important part of your system. And I think it's absolutely true because somebody who can see a picture knows what they want. It doesn't matter almost what they're using, that they can pick up pretty much any camera and get a reasonable result. And if you've got a nice camera, then maybe that makes a difference to the sharpness or something else. But it's sort of incremental. The core image comes from the 12 inches behind the view.
Yeah. I do think having a fancy camera, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
But I still think if you're starting out photography, you should actually probably use a worse camera because it actually teaches you so much about the equipment and taking pictures. Like, I don't know if you have this or if anyone else does, but when I'm like photographing, I can like really like see the image before I've even put up my camera to take it. Like I'm like, I know what I'm shooting there.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that is knowing what you want. Well, not necessarily what you want, but being able to see the image is a lot more important than having a good camera to capture it.
Absolutely. And a big part of it also, I mean, with what you're doing, which is very creative, you have to be able to visualize it first. If you're doing more, say, travel and wildlife, things like that, I think it's important to observe what's around. And that also will tell you what the possible pictures are. When I was doing the photo walks, so those people who know me from Sydney, one of the challenges I'd make to people, we'd be in place called Circular Quay in Sydney. So you've got the Opera House at one side, the Harbour Bridge on the other. So, of course, it's full of tourists all day. And I would challenge people to take a photograph that nobody had taken that day. And it comes down to looking at what's around and starting to think and use that creative part of you to use what you've got and create something inspiring.
Yeah, I would definitely struggle with that challenge. I would take it so far because I'm so competitive. I'd run off to find like a nook somewhere just so I could be like, look, mine's not like anyone else's.
You'd be one of the people we'd be trying to find after 10 minutes because you've gone off somewhere.
Yep, I'd be that person.
So where do you find inspiration, Rebecca? What inspires you?
Really, it's just my personal like feelings. So like I like to express my feelings through my work.
Yeah.
But when it comes to wildlife photography, the thing that inspires me is like conservation. So when I started the account was to share my photography, but it was also to use the photos of the animals that I had photographed to share their story and what occurs to these animals that you just, when you look at a cute animal, you're like, oh, that's adorable. But you're not thinking, well, there's only like 200 left because we've destroyed their habitat.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that really inspires me. And that's why I started it. It still inspires me today. And it's why I love wildlife photography, because you can capture these moments and show people. Because one of the easiest ways to get people actually talking about a subject is having a really good image that they connect with.
Yeah.
So then when they read what you've said about it, they're like, oh, okay, need to do something.
Yeah, I think I was trying to remember a quote. I think it was Attenborough, and it was about something along the lines of, if people don't feel connected to it, they're not going to care about it. So you've got to, and the photography is so powerful for doing that. And obviously some of the wildlife stuff that he's created over the years has done this. People have got connected, they've got interested, they've got excited by it. And then that creates the stage, I suppose, for people then taking the next step, which is to do something to help preserve those animals and the environments, and also the people who live in those environments, because it comes down to conflict often between local people and the animals and what happens there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like one of my like proudest moments was, I don't know if you remember, I posted a photo of a jaguar. His name was Remy the Jaguar. And he
Remy
had
was the amateur photographer.
Yeah, it was. But it's also now being published in Photo Plus, Canon's magazine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fantastic.
But my proudest moments was when it was in amateur photographer, because it was the fact that it wasn't my image that was necessarily being shared. It was its story.
Yeah.
Like they didn't want they wanted the image, but they wanted the story.
Yeah.
Like they were like, can we take what you've wrote about him and share it? And that was really important to me, because obviously he had a tumor, he had it removed. Luckily, he's still well. I went a few years after, and he was fully healed and great. And that was just so, it made me feel nice, even though he is a captive animal.
Yeah.
But it was just the thought, like, if this animal was in the wild, likely chances he would have died.
Yeah.
Which I think's nice to think. Like, obviously, a lot of people are against zoos. I do agree in some respect that zoos are harmful. But I also believe that if a zoo's working on like conservation, like they're looking to breed the animals and release them, or they're protecting them because these animals were hurt and they need somewhere to be,
Yeah.
then I agree it's a better state for them.
Yeah, and I think zoos have changed their focus, and that conservation, that preservation aspect is important. And also, I think it is still a place where people can come and see these animals directly, and hopefully through seeing them have an interest in doing something to help the wild animals still be here in another 50 years. And there are some iconic species that are definitely that's questionable whether they'll be here in 50 years. So I think however the story gets out, it's important that the story gets out, it's told and it's retold, and hopefully with great images people feel a connection and they feel moved to take a small step. And if we each take one step, it might be donating to something or whatever it might be, then we've just shifted a huge amount in just one step. And if we collectively can do a little bit of that every now and again, it's really good news.
Yeah, it really is great. And not only like I believe in zoos for like that reason, I also think as a wildlife photographer, if you really like wildlife photography, but obviously you're struggling to get the practice in, because animals, they don't always show up.
No.
I think one of the best places to practice your skills are zoos.
Yeah.
Because you can just sit there for hours with an animal that is there. And the best thing that it taught me was thinking about backgrounds.
Yeah.
So in none of my images will you see like the caging or the glass or anything that resembles a zoo enclosure. Because that was my main focus when I was photographing them, was to make sure that the shift of where I positioned my background would look like its natural environment to avoid distraction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's really good. Time's gone by really fast. I've absolutely enjoyed that conversation. Before we wind up, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or just share with anybody, or even some, if people are not sure about how to approach their photography, any tips you've got for people getting started, or anything you'd love to share? I completely leave it open for you.
Oh God, the pressure.
No pressure. But we've only got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think if you're starting, just take as many photos as possible, because when I started, my main thing is I'd take a picture, I'd look at it and go, oh, delete, take another picture, oh, delete. Just take thousands and thousands of images. There will be one good in there. I promise you that.
That's good. And I think not deleting as well is good, because sometimes you look at them afterwards and then you think, oh, actually, that wasn't as bad. It's that, thing we were talking about earlier. Okay, well, I'm going to wind things up there, Rebecca. Thank you again so much for spending time with me. I absolutely loved it. And
thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure. And we'll stay in touch, obviously. And I'm looking forward to the new work being posted. Okay, take care and bye for now.
Bye.
Oh, and one thing just before you go, please take a look at the 2026 wildlife calendar. That's available now. It's on the website. There's a link below the description of this podcast episode. So please take a look, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye now.